Okay, welcome back. So what we have left to do is we've got to integrate this paging system into our design. While you were away, I just built out a couple of generic signal paths for different types of rooms. If you look at my design here, I've got my lobby and my conference room built out with a couple of things. The lobby has a couple of different music sources that could be chosen by this router, which gets summed down to a mono channel. It's going through a continuous ambient compensator, which will constantly keep the levels in this room high or low based on how much crowd noise there is. And we're finding that crowd noise via an ambient microphone that's in the ceiling, which is also coming in through my core's microphone channels. And that's going out to a loudspeaker in the room, probably a bunch of them. In the conference room, I've got four microphones coming in on Dante going through an AEC system. Oh, I didn't put in a reference yet. I'll fix that in just a second. In fact, it would come from right here. This would be my AEC reference. That would go back to the reference. That gets sent to the far end caller. Meanwhile, the far end caller's voice is coming in. I've also got a couple of HDMI sources in this room that are going through an HDMI router. I'm stripping the audio off that HDMI, sending it and mixing it in with my far end caller's voice to go to the loudspeakers in the room. And again, I'm referencing that out right there. And I'm also sending that to a display. Not a lot going on here, just talking you through some things that might be in these various rooms. We want to integrate these zones into these rooms. We'll just do the lobby and the conference room. We want to duck down the rest of the audio in those rooms when this happens. There's a lot of ways that you can do this, and if the way that you do it successfully makes the audio duck down, well, all right, you did it right. You could do it like in a really manual way. You remember that in the PA router's control panel, we get this active LED that lights up when you're sending something to that zone. I mean, you could use that LED to then wire to the mute pins of these audio sources to turn off things that are in that room when the zone is active. That's just kind of forcing your way through it and punching a lot. We want to do it a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more subtly than that. There's two real different ways you could think about doing this. Option one is to take the outputs of the zones and then integrate them into the signal paths of these various rooms. Option two is to take these various rooms and funnel them to the PA router and back again. And I'll show you the difference between the two of them. We'll do option one first, where we take the zones and send them to these rooms. We're going to do that using a component called the priority ducker. And it's under your audio components. I'll grab this in here. The priority ducker is not specifically a paging component. You could use the priority ducker for all kinds of different things in all kinds of different situations, which means that in order to use it for our system here, we are going to have to finesse it just a little bit. The priority ducker, by default, comes in with 8 channels. I'm going to reduce that down to a single channel so we can talk about what it does. Even though I reduced it to a single channel, it still has 2 input pins. What's going on here? Well, what the priority ducker does is it allows whatever is wired into its input pins to flow directly on out to its output pins. Nothing happens. It just passes through unless something is detected on its final input pin called the priority pin. Here's how it would work. I would insert this. I'm going to break this path right here. I'm going to insert it at the end of my signal path here in the lobby. I'm going to wire my lobby's program material through the priority ducker. And right now, the same thing happens as normal, as was previously in that lobby. The audio just flows through. But then I'm going to grab the lobby PA material and paste that onto the priority pin. Now, whenever signal presence is detected in that priority pin, it will duck down whatever is coming in on its other pins, replace it with the priority pin, and then when that priority pin goes quiet again, it returns back to the original program material. So you don't need to then mix this audio in with a mixer later on. The priority ducker does both. It both ducks down and replaces, and then sends it through to the output. And that's what we want in this scenario. If you had multiple channels, that happens to every single channel. A priority ducker does not mix its inputs together. These are all separate. What goes in one, goes out one. What comes in two, goes out two. those 1 and 2 are not mixing together. So you might want to use a priority ducker to apply a particular channel to duck down multiple different signal paths that have no association with each other whatsoever. You could do that. In our case, I'm going to use independent priority duckers for each of our rooms. And let's actually see if we can get this to work. But before I get it to work, I want to warn you about something. Whenever you start integrating paging into a particular signal flow, you want to think very carefully about where it goes in that signal path and what it might affect in that signal path as well. Be careful. I chose to put this at the end of the signal path. Now, that might not have been the best choice because this room has a continuous ambient compensator. The point of the compensator is that it's going to rise or lower the gain of the things that you're hearing in the room if the crowd is loud. If the crowd is loud, I probably want that same thing to occur to my announcements so that the announcements are also loud and louder than the crowd. Right now, I've placed the priority ducker after the continuous ambient compensator, which would mean that my announcements are played at a fixed level no matter what, no matter how loud the crowd is, no matter how quiet the crowd is. That might not be the right choice for this particular room. I might want to put that priority ducker earlier in the room, before the compensator, so that it's part of the audio that is changed by the compensator. That's probably a good idea. Another thing that may go wrong with the way I've done it right here is that the compensator, if you know what the compensator does, it requires a reference of what's being sent out of the loudspeakers, because the compensator is listening to the room via a microphone, and it also hears all the noise that you're putting into the room via that microphone, and it has to ignore that noise so that it can just hear the crowd itself. And right now, I am not referencing out the announcements that I'm playing into the room. And if I don't do that, then the compensator would think that these announcements are the result of someone in the crowd yelling really loudly. And then the compensator is going to actually increase the volume of the program material, trying to compensate for the crowd that thinks has gotten louder, fighting against the priority ducker, which is trying to duck down the program material. Lots of complications that could arise. So if I really wanted my priority ducker after the compensator, I would need to adjust my reference so that I'm referencing the last thing that goes to my loudspeaker. But more realistically, like I said, I would probably actually put the priority ducker before the compensator at all, so that it is part of what is ducked. It's part of what is compensated to get it louder as the crowd gets louder. However, that could also potentially be problematic. Because what if you have something after the priority ducker that's got a mute button on it or a gain control on it? What if after this point I've given the user the ability to turn that volume down? That's now being applied to all of your announcements. What if you're sending an emergency announcement to the priority ducker and the users have muted that audio because they didn't want to listen to it? Now they're muting your emergency announcement, and they're not hearing the call to evacuate. So be careful about the way that you place this. Generally speaking, I would recommend that the priority ducker would almost always go at the very end of your signal path, because you want to make sure that it is going to be audible regardless of what is happening in the room. And in an instance like this, where I've got a continuous ambient compensator that is also changing the volume, what I'm going to do is I would take the applied gain of this continuous ambient compensator, which tells you how much it's changing the gain, and I would apply that to the gain that's coming out of this room. So I could go to my lobby and I can say zone 1 gain. I would apply the same gain of the CAC to that zone so that no matter what, my announcements will also be going up and down at the same level as the continuous ambient compensator, while not being subject to any muting or gain changes that would otherwise happen after the signal flow. Gets tricky, right? So many things to think about. Just be careful where you put that placement and what else in your flow might be affected by it. Let's make sure that it works. I'm going to save to the core and run. All right, we're connected. I'm going to pin open, once again, the hover monitor on my output here. I'm going to play some music from my audio player. I can see that's coming through. And I'll play an announcement. An announcement from Fake Hotel.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fake Hotel would like to remind you that our elevators are also fake. Please stop pressing the elevator call button and start climbing those stairs. Thank you.
Sounded a little weird, right? Because, let me close that, we needed to adjust the Priority Ducker's controls to make sure that it's actually going to react the way we want it to. In an announcement, there might be a little bit of quietness as someone is talking. As someone speaks, they might take a breath. A Priority Ducker does not know that they're just taking a breath. They don't know that the person isn't going to continue talking. The Priority Ducker just knows that there's less audio here, so it's returning us to the music that was already playing. So that's why it kind of sounded like you're hearing the announcements and you're also hearing the music at the same time. The Ducker needs to be finessed. So let's take a look at what this Ducker's got for its control panel. You saw in here this response graph that was bouncing around based on the audio as it was coming in. It's trying to figure out, hey, how loud is the thing on the priority pin? And does that loudness constitute something that we should react to? That's based on the threshold level. If you lower your threshold significantly down to the very bottom, then pretty much any noise that comes in on that channel is going to be treated as something that is worthy of ducking the other channels. And then you choose how much you want to duck it down. We're ducking it down significantly. You can see this red line at 100 decibels. Maybe you only want it to lower it a little bit. Maybe you want to hear the audio music just a little bit in the background. That's up to you. You can also choose how much you are changing the level of the priority channel. And then some time constants down here. The attack time is how quickly we duck down that material when we get the presence of the announcement. 10 milliseconds is pretty quick. Maybe it's too quick. Maybe you want to give a slower fade on that so that the audio or the music gradually drops down while the preamble is playing. Hold time and release time, very important. I would increase your hold time to at least a second in general. That's going to help compensate for people who take pauses in their sentences. You don't want it to come back in while they're paused. A 1 second hold time means that after the signal presence has gone away, it will wait a full second before it starts to release the program material back to its normal level. And if that signal presence reignites within that 1 second, then it's going to keep on going. And then that hold time will start again the next time they stop talking. And same thing might be true with a nice slow release time. A couple seconds of release time, 3 or 4, will allow the background music to slowly and gently come back up to where it was. And that way we're not getting too much interruption. So let's try that. I'm going to open up my PA router as well and make sure we see everything coming through. I will once again, I will pin open my monitor. Let's play some music. The best music money can buy. An announcement from Fake Hotel.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fake Hotel would like to remind you that our elevators are also fake. Please stop pressing the elevator call button and start climbing those stairs. Thank you.
Now it's done. It's returned back. It's returned back to its level. Makes sense? You can adjust all of those at your discretion. Make sure it makes sound. Make sure it makes the right kinds of sound and reacts the right way that is appropriate for your venue. All the controls are here. That's what you want to play with. So that was all option 1. The priority ducker. That's when we are taking each of these to the rooms. If I wanted to do that for my conference room, same thing. I would take the conference zone outputs. We would add another priority ducker down here before the output of my conference room. And this time I would use the conference channel and send it here. I would once again need to update other things in the room. In this case, I have an AEC that is referencing all of the audio in the room. I'm going to readjust my reference so that it is including the announcements in the room as the things that it wants to ignore from your microphone channels as part of your teleconferencing system. And that way, that is included, and we're going to remove that audio from the audio that is sent to the far end caller. If you want the far end caller, in this case, to hear your announcements, then you would just send those announcements to the far end caller as well. In this case, I'm going to remove them from the room. So that's our priority ducker. sending this out to each of the signal paths. And that might be the right way for you. What I like about the priority ducker is that my signal flows all stay linear. I can see them on one path, they stay straight. I'm not breaking them and sending them somewhere else and coming back again. That's what we're going to do with our second option.